In the nascent spring of 1862, the American Civil War was poised to shed its romantic illusions. Major General Ulysses S. Grant's Union Army of the Tennessee had pushed deep into the Confederate heartland. They numbered nearly 49,000 men, a formidable force of veterans and raw recruits alike. Their camp was established at Pittsburgh Landing, a humble steamship port on the western bank of the Tennessee River. The air was filled with the scent of damp earth and the blossoms of nearby peach orchards. Grant's orders were to wait, to consolidate his strength before striking a decisive blow. He awaited the arrival of Major General Don Carlos Buell's Army of the Ohio. Together, they would march on the critical Confederate railway hub at Corinth, Mississippi. But 20 miles to the southwest, a different plan was taking shape. General Albert Sidney Johnston, the esteemed Confederate commander in the West, refused to wait for the Union's hammer to fall. He understood the dire mathematics of the situation. He had to attack before Grant and Buell could unite. Johnston concentrated his Army of Mississippi, a force of approximately 44,000 men, near Corinth. He was a commander beloved by his men and highly regarded throughout the South. The Confederate plan was audacious, a surprise attack to drive the Union Army into the swamps of Owl Creek. The march from Corinth was a logistical nightmare, plagued by torrential spring rains. Wagons sank to their axles in the thick, sucking mud of the Tennessee roads. The element of surprise, so crucial to their success, seemed to be slipping away with every passing hour. Despite the delays, the Confederates were in position by the evening of April 5th. They lay concealed in the dense woods, just a mile or two from the unsuspecting Union pickets. In the Union camps, blissful ignorance reigned. General William Tecumseh Sherman, a division commander, had dismissed reports of significant Confederate activity, believed the Confederates were more likely retreating than preparing for a major assault. Many of the Union soldiers were green, having never before heard a shot fired in anger. They spent the evening cleaning rifles, playing cards, and writing letters home. The dawn of Sunday, April 6th, broke with a deceptive calm. Then, the quiet was shattered by the sound of 1,000 charging men. The Confederate line surged forward, a wave of gray and butternut crashing into the Union camps. Union soldiers were bayoneted in their tents, caught completely by surprise. Breakfasts were left cooking over untended fires as men scrambled for their rifles. The initial assault was a stunning success, routing the forward Union divisions. Panic spread through the green troops as they fled in disarray towards the landing. The fighting quickly devolved into a brutal, chaotic struggle across a battlefield of tangled woods and small clearings. General Grant was miles downriver on a gunboat when the battle began. He heard the distant thunder of artillery and immediately knew something was terribly wrong. He galloped towards the fighting, a desperate ride to rally his shattered army. Amidst the chaos, pockets of stubborn Union resistance began to form. One such position was along a sunken farm road, a natural trench in the landscape. Here, elements of 3 Union divisions under Brigadier General Benjamin Prentiss made a stand. For hours, they held their ground against repeated, furious Confederate assaults. The Confederates, attacking the position, said the hail of bullets sounded like swarms of angry hornets. The sunken road would forever be known as the Hornet's Nest. The defense of the Hornet's Nest bought Grant precious time to establish a final defensive line. To break the stalemate, Confederate Brigadier General Daniel Ruggles assembled a massive artillery battery. Over 50 cannons were brought together, the largest concentration of artillery yet seen in North America. The thunderous barrage finally shattered the Union defenders in the Hornet's Nest. Surrounded and out of ammunition, Prentiss and some 2,200 Union soldiers were forced to surrender. It was a major tactical victory for the Confederates, but it had come at a great cost in time. While the fighting raged at the Hornet's Nest, a greater tragedy befell the Confederate command. General Johnston, leading an attack on the Union left, was struck in the leg by a stray bullet. The wound, severing an artery, might have been treatable with a simple tourniquet. Tragically, Johnston had sent his personal surgeon to care for wounded Union soldiers just moments before. He bled to death within minutes, becoming the highest-ranking officer killed in the entire war. His death was a devastating blow to Confederate morale and leadership. Command passed to a second, General P.G.T. Beauregard. As darkness fell, the Union Army had been pushed back to a final defensive perimeter near Pittsburgh Landing. Their backs were against the Tennessee River, with nowhere left to retreat. Beauregard, believing Grant's army was defeated, called a halt to the attacks for the night. He sent a telegram to Richmond announcing a complete victory. It was a decision that would prove to be a catastrophic miscalculation. Overnight, under the cover of a thunderstorm, the tide of battle began to turn. The vanguard of Buell's Army of the Ohio began to arrive, ferried across the turbulent river. Thousands of fresh, determined Union troops bolstered the beleaguered defensive line. Major General Lew Wallace's lost division also finally arrived, adding to Grant's strength. At dawn on Monday, April 7th, it was Grant's turn to attack. A powerful Union counterattack surged forward across the same blood-soaked ground. The weary and outnumbered Confederates were caught by surprise, their morning camps overrun. The fighting on the second day was just as fierce and desperate as the first. Battle lines surged back and forth over fields littered with the dead and wounded. The peach orchard, its blossoms now trampled and blood-stained, became a focal point of the fighting. The small log meeting house, Shiloh Church, was riddled with bullets and cannonballs. The name Shiloh, ironically, meant place of peace. With their advantage in numbers and fresh troops, the Union forces slowly but surely gained the upper hand. By early afternoon, Beauregard realized his army was exhausted and on the verge of collapse. He had no choice but to order a retreat, to save what was left of his command. A fighting withdrawal began, the Confederates stubbornly resisting as they fell back towards Corinth. The Union Army, itself battered and exhausted, was in no condition to mount an effective pursuit. The Battle of Shiloh was over. The ground was littered with the terrible cost of victory and defeat. It was a Union victory, but a grim and costly one. The combined casualties for both sides were staggering, exceeding 23,000 men. This single battle produced more casualties than all of America's previous wars combined. The numbers shocked the nation, North and South. Shiloh was a brutal awakening to the true nature of the war. Any romantic notions of a short, glorious conflict were shattered in the Tennessee woods. The battle hardened the resolve of both sides for the long, bloody struggle that lay ahead. The victory secured control of the Tennessee River. It paved the way for the eventual capture of Corinth and the advance into the Confederate heartland. For the Confederacy, the loss of Albert Sidney Johnston was an irreplaceable blow. The name Shiloh would forever be synonymous with the terrible, tragic cost of the American Civil War. The quiet log church became a pilgrimage site for veterans in the years that followed. They came to remember the friends they had lost in the peach orchard. They walked the sunken road, recalling the fury of the Hornet's Nest. The battle taught a harsh lesson in the importance of preparedness. Grant, initially criticized for being surprised, learned from his mistakes. He would go on to become the architect of the Union's ultimate victory. The echoes of Shiloh would reverberate through the remainder of the war. Never again would either side underestimate the ferocity of the other. The fields around Pittsburgh Landing slowly returned to nature. But the memory of the slaughter remained, a permanent scar on the land. The battle became a symbol of the war's transition from a limited conflict to total war. It was a crucible that forged armies and tested commanders. The raw recruits who survived Shiloh became hardened veterans overnight. Innocence was another casualty of the battle. The sound of the hornet's nest would ring in their ears for the rest of their lives. The sight of the blood-stained peach blossoms would never be forgotten. Shiloh was the point of no return for a nation at war with itself. The brutal awakening in Tennessee set the stage for even bloodier conflicts to come. The sun rose on April 8th over a scene of utter devastation. Burial parties began their grim work under a flag of truce. The scale of the task was overwhelming, a testament to the battle's ferocity. Union and Confederate soldiers were laid to rest in mass graves. The personal belongings of the fallen were collected for their families. Each item represented a life cut short, a family shattered. The Tennessee River, which had brought the armies to this place, now carried away the wounded. Its waters ran muddy, stained by the runoff from the battlefield. The air was thick with the smell of chloroform and blood. For the survivors, the mental scars would last a lifetime. The quiet woods of Shiloh had become a landscape of ghosts. The battle's narrative was written in the letters soldiers sent home. They spoke of the terrifying noise, the confusion, and the courage of their comrades. They tried to describe the indescribable horror of industrial-scale warfare. The nation, reading these accounts, began to grasp the war's true cost. Shiloh was not just a battle. It was a profound and bloody lesson. It taught that victory in this war would require unimaginable sacrifice. The quiet landing on the Tennessee River was now etched into the American memory. The 2 days of fighting in April 1862 had changed everything. The war and the nation had been irrevocably altered by the brutal awakening at Shiloh. The conflict would continue for 3 more years, fueled by the bitter lessons learned here. The fallen soldiers of Shiloh lay in the Tennessee soil, a silent testament to the nation's agony. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten by those who survived the ordeal. The battle's legacy was one of both tactical victory and profound human tragedy. Hornet's Nest became a symbol of incredible bravery against impossible odds. The peach orchard became a metaphor for innocence lost in the crucible of war. The name of the small church would forever evoke a sense of solemn irony. Shiloh was the moment the Civil War lost its pageantry and revealed its savage heart. It was a brutal, 2-day education in the reality of modern combat. The quiet Tennessee landscape had witnessed a turning point in American history. And the nation would never be the same again.